The rain was still beating against the grand bay windows of the estate, a rhythmic drumming that seemed to count down the seconds of the rest of my life. The silence in the living room was heavy, suffocating, filled with the ghosts of 15 years of insults and the sudden, sharp shock of the truth. Just moments ago, I had revealed myself. I was no longer Sarah, the unwanted daughter-in-law, the girl from the wrong side of the tracks, the burden. I was J.D. Stone, the secret millionaire author, and I was the legal owner of the very floorboards my mother-in-law, Linda, was standing on. I held the deed in my hand. It was a piece of paper, but in that moment, it felt like a sword. Linda sat in her velvet chair, her face a mask of terrified anticipation. David, my husband, stood frozen, looking at me as if he had never seen me before. They were waiting for the executioner. They were waiting for me to scream, to point to the door, to inflict the same cruelty upon them that they had inflicted upon me for over a decade. I looked at the three paths that lay before me. I could destroy them. I could expose their darkest secrets. Or I could do something harder, something that required a strength I wasn't sure I possessed until this very second. I looked at Linda, really looked at her, without her arrogance, without the shield of her ownership over this house. She looked small. She was an old woman with trembling hands and a gambling addiction, terrified of the poverty she had mocked all her life. I looked at David, a man who had never learned to stand on his own 2 feet, a man who was currently realizing that his safety net had just been bought by the wife he had failed to protect. If I kicked them out into the storm, I would be justified. Nobody would blame me. But if I kicked them out, I would be just like her. I would be proving that money makes you cruel, and I refused to let her win that moral victory. I took a breath, folded the deed, and placed it calmly on the table next to the spilled champagne. I walked over to the window and watched the rain for a moment before turning back to them. The sound of my voice was soft, but it carried an authority that had never been there before. "Pick up the glass, Linda," I said. It wasn't a request. Linda blinked, confused. She looked down at the shattered champagne flute on the floor. For a second, I saw the old spark of defiance in her eyes, the instinct to tell me that cleaning was my job. But then she remembered the deed. She remembered the bank transfer. She remembered that she was broke. Slowly, painfully, she bent down in her Chanel suit. Her knees cracked. She picked up the shards of glass with shaking fingers and placed them on the table. It was a small act, but it signified the complete death of the old hierarchy. "I'm not going to evict you," I said, and I heard the collective exhale of breath from both of them. David took a step toward me, a look of pathetic relief washing over his face, but I held up a hand to stop him. "I'm not finished. I said I'm not going to evict you, but you are not living in this house. This is my house, my sanctuary, and I will not have the energy of this toxic relationship poisoning my air." I pointed through the back window toward the garden. "The guest cottage? The one you renovated last year, Linda? The one you told me was perfect for the help, or for David if he ever needed space? That is where you will live, both of you." Linda gasped. "The cottage? Sarah, it's a 1-bedroom studio. It's tiny. Where will I put my things, my furniture?" "You won't," I replied coldly. "You sold the house, Linda. The furniture belongs to me now. You can take your clothes, your personal items, and whatever fits in the cottage. Everything else stays here. You wanted to downsize, remember? You told me earlier today that you were moving to a condo. Well, consider this your condo. Rent-free. But there are rules." I walked closer to her, towering over her as she sat in the chair that was now legally mine. "Rule number 1, you do not enter the main house unless invited. I will not have you walking through my kitchen, criticizing my cooking ever again. Rule number 2, You will treat me with the respect due to the person who is paying for your electricity, your water, and the roof over your head. If I hear one snide comment, one insult about my background, one whisper to your friends about how unfortunate David's marriage is, the deal is off, and you will be on the street. Do you understand?" Linda nodded. She couldn't speak. She was weeping, not tears of sorrow, but tears of humiliation. She had been conquered, not by force, but by charity. David looked at me, his eyes pleading. "Sarah, please, I'm your husband. You can't expect me to live in the cottage with my mother. We're married." I looked at him, and I felt a pang of sadness. I loved him once. I still loved the memory of him, but the man standing in front of me was a stranger. "We are married, David? But marriage is a partnership. And for the last 15 years, you have been her partner, not mine. You stood by while she belittled me. You packed your boxes when she told you to. You were ready to leave me behind. So now you have a choice. You can divorce me and leave. I won't stop you. Or you can go to the cottage, help your mother get settled, and we can start therapy. Maybe, if you work hard enough, you might earn your way back into the main house. But you are not sleeping in my bed tonight. Not after today." The move happened that very afternoon. It was a spectacle of poetic justice. The rain had stopped, leaving the grounds damp and gray. I stood on the balcony of the master bedroom, Linda's old room, drinking a cup of tea, watching them. I watched David lugging heavy suitcases across the wet lawn. I watched Linda struggling with her jewelry box, her heels sinking into the mud. They looked like refugees of their own making. It was a walk of shame that lasted for 3 hours. Every time they looked up at the house, they saw me standing there, the lady of the manor, watching them. I didn't help. I didn't offer to carry a bag. I had carried their emotional baggage for 15 years. I wasn't going to carry their physical baggage too. The first few weeks were surreal. The silence in the main house was luxurious. I hired a decorator, a real one, not one of Linda's friends. I stripped the wallpaper. I got rid of the heavy, dark drapes that Linda loved and replaced them with light, airy linen. I turned the formal dining room, the scene of my Thanksgiving humiliation, into a library for my writing. I wanted to erase her stain from the property. And the best part? They had to watch. From the windows of the small guest cottage at the bottom of the garden, they could see the delivery trucks arriving. They could see the painters. They could see the transformation of the estate they had lost. One afternoon, about a month later, I was in the garden inspecting the roses. Linda came out of the cottage. She looked different. She wasn't wearing her pearls. She was wearing a simple tracksuit, something I had never seen her in before. She looked older, more frail. The defiance had drained out of her, replaced by a nervous hesitation. She walked toward me, stopping a few feet away, unsure if she was allowed to approach. "The roses are blooming early this year," she said. Her voice was small. It was an olive branch, a pathetic, withered olive branch, but an olive branch. "They are," I replied, not looking up from the flower I was pruning. "I fired the old gardener. He was charging you triple the market rate because he knew you didn't check the invoices. I hired someone honest." Linda flinched. It was a subtle reminder of her incompetence and my competence. "Sarah," she started, then stopped. She took a breath. "The hot water heater in the cottage is making a noise." In the past, she would have demanded I fix it. She would have shouted. Now, she was asking. She was reporting a problem to her landlord. I stood up and wiped my hands on a cloth. "I'll have someone look at it tomorrow." "Is there anything else?" "No," she whispered. She lingered for a moment. "David misses you. He's miserable in there with me. We drive each other crazy. He's a grown man, Linda. He can make his own decisions. If he's miserable, maybe he should ask himself why he's there. David did try. To his credit, the shock of the power shift had shaken him out of his lethargy. He started going to therapy, just as I had demanded. We met once a week in the library of the main house. It was awkward at first. He cried a lot. He talked about how his mother had controlled him since he was a child, how he had been terrified of being poor, of being a failure. He admitted that he had underestimated me, that he hadn't realized I was the stronger one in the relationship. He apologized over and over again. Slowly, I let him back in. Not all the way, not immediately, but we started having dinner together in the main house on weekends. Linda was never invited.
She would sit in the cottage eating her dinner alone or watching TV, knowing that her son was with me in the house she used to rule. It was a wedge I drove between them deliberately. I needed David to understand that his loyalty had to be to me, exclusively. If he wanted the life of luxury, the comfort, the wife he claimed to love, he had to cut the cord. The true test of this new arrangement came 3 months later. It was the day of the annual Garden Club Gala. For 20 years, Linda had hosted this event. It was the highlight of her social calendar, the day she showed off her wealth to the community. She assumed, naturally, that it was canceled. But I had other plans. I sent out the invitations. I hired the caterers, the best ones, the ones she was too cheap to pay for. On the day of the party, the estate looked magnificent. Cars lined the driveway. The elite of Connecticut society poured into the garden, sipping champagne and admiring the renovations. Linda was there. I had allowed her to come. She was wearing one of her old suits, trying to hold her head high, but everyone knew. Rumors travel fast in high society. They knew the house had been sold. They knew I was the buyer. They knew she was living in the cottage. I watched her from across the lawn. She was surrounded by her friends, women who were now looking at her with pity rather than admiration. One of them, a woman named Margaret, who had been particularly nasty to me in the past, walked up to me. "Sarah, darling," Margaret gushed. Her tone completely changed. "The house looks absolutely stunning. J.D. Stone. I had no idea. I read all your books. Why didn't you tell us?" "I preferred to let my work speak for itself, Margaret," I said with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Besides, Linda always preferred to do the talking, didn't she?" "Oh, you know Linda, always the center of attention, but it seems the torch has passed. It's so generous of you to let her stay on the property. Most people would have put her in a home." I glanced at Linda. She was watching us. She heard every word. She saw the way her friends were now flocking to me, drawn to the money, drawn to the power. She saw that she had become irrelevant in her own kingdom. That was the moment I realized that my revenge was complete. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to throw her clothes on the lawn. By showing mercy, by keeping her close, I had forced her to witness my ascension every single day. I had turned her into a spectator in the life she used to lead. Later that evening, after the guests had left, I found David in the kitchen helping the caterers clean up. He didn't have to. I had paid for full service, but he was doing it anyway. He looked at me, wiped his hands, and walked over. "You are amazing today, Sarah. Mom is in the cottage. She's crying." "Is she? Why?" "Because she realized that nobody misses her. She realized that the house is better without her. And she realized that you are a better person than she ever was." David took my hand. I know I don't deserve to ask this yet, but can I come home? I don't mean just to sleep. I mean, can I come home to you? I'm done with her, Sarah. I see her now for what she is, a bitter, sad old woman. I want to be with the woman who built all of this. I looked at my husband. The weakness was still there, yes. He would always be a man who gravitated toward strength rather than generating his own. But he was mine. I had broken his reliance on his mother. I had bought his loyalty, perhaps. But in our world, that was often as good as love. I said he could move his things back in tomorrow, but David, the guest room, for now. You still have to court me. You still have to prove that you want Sarah, not just the owner of Stone Holdings. He nodded, grateful for even that crumb of affection. I will, I promise. Years have passed since that day. Life in the estate has settled into a quiet, comfortable rhythm. I write my books in the sun-drenched library. David manages the property maintenance. He actually enjoys it now that he's not being screamed at while he's doing it. And Linda? Linda is still in the cottage. She has aged rapidly. The loss of power took a toll on her health that no medicine could fix. She walks with a cane now. Sometimes I see her sitting on the porch of the cottage, staring up at the big house. When our eyes meet, she doesn't glare anymore. She nods. It is a nod of submission. She knows that every meal she eats, every warm night she spends indoors, is a gift from the woman she called the help. I chose the path of mercy. Some might say I was too soft. Some might say I should have cut the cancer out completely. But as I sit here on my velvet chair, watching the sunset over the empire I built from the shadows, I know the truth. Mercy isn't weakness. Mercy is the ultimate flex of power. Keeping your enemies close, keeping them fed, and keeping them grateful is a far greater punishment than sending them away. Linda lives every day with the knowledge of her failure, and I live every day with the proof of my victory. I didn't just buy a house, and I didn't just save a marriage. I bought a family, and I remade it in my own image. And that is worth every penny.